Am I the asshole for wanting to enforce my boundary? My husband G, 30 male, and I, 28 female, have been together for about 6 years, married for 2. We have had a really good run so far, but there is one topic that we have always disagreed on: bikes. Very early on in the relationship, he told me that he wants to get a bike license, and I sat him down and told him that that was an absolute no-go for me and always would be, but that we were only together for a month and that I would understand if he decided to end things cleanly there and then. He asked for some time, but in the end, told me that he was okay with giving this up for a chance with me. Fast forward to 2 days ago, he came home from work and he was visibly upset. I tried talking to him, but he was avoidant until he snapped and started venting that all of his friends are planning a massive bike trip for next summer and that they told him that he should get his license and tag along. He also told me that he was always very supportive of me, which is very true, and that this was his only dream and I was taking it away. I did not have the best reaction to this and just replied asking if he was serious. He said yes. I told him that he was a big boy and he can do what he wants, but that if he goes on that trip, he would come back to an empty house. He packed some stuff and is now staying with some friends. Am I the baddie here? I was always very clear about my boundary, gave him the chance early enough to leave if he doesn't like it, and I just don't want it crossed. His friends, who are obviously biased of course, have been putting divorce jokes on their social media since he left after our fight. Edit. I wanted to add a small edit to answer some of the common questions that I have seen in response to the post. Why is this such a hard boundary for me? I have lost multiple, a total of 6 family members and friends between the ages of 6 and 19. Also, he has known this since the first time that we talked about it. Why am I taking out my trauma on him, and why don't I get help for my anxiety? I have been in various forms of therapy since I was 8. This continues to this day, though it's not completely for my anxiety anymore, since it has lessened over the years and there have been other issues that I needed help with. My last therapy was last week, another is scheduled for next Monday. I also never felt like I'm taking my trauma out on anyone. I dealt with my feelings in therapy, but decided that I would never put myself into a position where a death due to a bike accident was likely. Yes, I know that anyone can die at any point in time for any reason, and when we first talked about it, he asked me if there was any form of extreme sport that I would be okay with. We have been diving together, he is regularly bouldering, and I got him skydiving lessons for his birthday last year. But bikes are a no-go and they always will be. Is there any other option in this situation? I asked him if he were okay with going along on another vehicle. He scoffed and told me that it's not the same. And why am I giving him an ultimatum? This is where I royally effed up, and I admit and accept it. In the moment when I said it, I didn't see it as a threat or an ultimatum, but rather a fact that I was stating. It was not to scare or manipulate him, it's the truth. But I understand that it comes across horribly, and I'm going to apologize for it when I can. And now onto the update. So it has been about a month since my first post, and though the final result was no assholes here, the comments were extremely varied and I read through almost all of them. Special shout out here to all of the people who could write why they thought I was the asshole without using strings of insults. Onto the update. The day after, I told G that I would like to sit down with him and talk about things properly. He said that he would like that too and came home. I apologized for how I said what I said, while also standing firm that while my delivery left things to be desired, to put it mildly, the message itself still stands. He said that he understood, and he apologized for snapping at me like he did. After a long talk, this is how I could summarize what happened. His friends at work invited him on the trip, he said no and explained why. He then started getting teased by them, saying that he was being whipped, and what it felt like when the wife wears the pants. This went on for a couple of weeks, after which he decided he would tell them that he would go with them because he put me in my place. But the teasing didn't stop, and now he also felt guilty, causing him to be as angry as he was that night. After the talk, we weren't really sure how to proceed. So we thought the best would be if we went to a professional together to figure things out. Counseling was a blessing, helping us articulate some thoughts that we both had that we couldn't really say out loud before. There was a lot of emotion and a lot of crying, but it was so helpful for the both of us to really understand what the other is going through. He also did some individual sessions, and he decided to distance himself from his friends indefinitely. We also realized that where we live is extremely motorcycle-centric, and that if we decided to stay together, then we should probably move away. Last week, he sat me down and he told me that he has been looking for work and got a really good offer from a company almost 2,000 miles away from where we live. He asked me if he could put in his notice and if we could start looking for a house somewhere in that area. I work from home, so moving is not really an issue for me, and we managed to find a nice-looking place pretty close to his work. Nothing is set in stone yet, but things are looking really good. TLDR, the problem turned out to be a friend problem and not a relationship problem. Friends are gone, counseling is underway, and things are looking good. And now in the comments, it sounds like you worked on your communication and counseling helped. I'm glad you found a solution, and I hope things continue to improve. Great work. Yeah, something I need to remind myself of sometimes is that it's us versus the problem, not us versus each other. The real assholes were the toxic, misogynistic friends we made along the way. Right? I read "put her in her place" and legit gagged. I'm glad he realized how gross that move was and decided to fix things. My friend told me that her husband thinks my husband needs to keep me on a tighter leash. My husband's response is that I am not a dog. I once had a friend admit that there had been exactly one point in her marriage when she had considered a divorce. After talking about things with her spouse, she realized she hated her life, not her husband. She was just so unhappy about everything else that he had gotten lumped in her confused desire for change. She found a new job, they moved multiple states away, and when I met them, they were #couple goals. It's so easy to misplace anger and discontent. I'm glad you and your husband were able to pinpoint the real problem, and I hope that when you get settled into your new home, you'll be the couple that others look up to. Am I the asshole for getting a hotel room? My partner, 30 female, and I, 30 male, flew halfway across the country to visit her family for Christmas. I sustained a serious back injury at work at the end of September and have just recently started gaining mobility again after many painful months. They were aware of my injury, and we even expressed our concerns about traveling because of it. Her parents are very traditional and refuse to allow unmarried couples to sleep in the same bed or room, even though they know we live together and have visited our house in the past. Because of this, I was forced to sleep in the basement bedroom on a twin mattress that was at least 20 years old. I should also mention that I'm 6'3" and do not fit on a twin mattress at all. The first night was so incredibly painful and caused my entire right leg to go numb, and I essentially got no sleep. We decided to get a hotel room after that, so that I could actually sleep on a decent mattress that didn't make my injury worse. When I explained this to my partner's mother, she insisted that I just needed to adjust the mattress in the basement and that I was being ridiculous. I was firm but polite about it, and she seemed to be fine with it after that. Well, when it came time to head over to the hotel for the night, she freaked out. Apparently, she didn't know my partner was also staying at the hotel. She told my partner that she didn't raise her like this, and then just sulked in the living room while we packed our bags. Apparently, after we left, she spent the rest of the night crying. All I wanted to do was sleep in a bed that I could actually fit on and didn't cause active nerve pain in my leg. So am I the asshole here? Now in the comments, not the asshole. You and your partner made sensible decisions. Your partner's mum is being over-emotional and ridiculous. Indeed. She knows they live together. Her inability to accept that fact in this day and age is really sad, and frankly, not her business. Not the asshole. Not only is the idea of unmarried couples sleeping separately completely outdated, but they know that you're already doing so in your own home. Unless they assume one of you sleeps on the couch, and you have medical needs that aren't being attended to in their home. You are respecting their wish that unmarried couples not sleep together in their home. Her parents seem to have the ability to wish away the situation by simply ignoring it. If you don't see it, it doesn't exist. That's their problem. Shrug it off and move on. I keep scratching my head over what "didn't raise her like this" could possibly mean in this situation. Didn't raise her to nook before marriage? The time to reckon with that should have been when the daughter started cohabiting. Didn't raise her to leave in response to "not under my roof"? Renting a room is a natural consequence to the house rules that mum set. Didn't raise her to want to sleep next to her injured partner? The daughter sleeps next to OP every night and probably doesn't sleep well away from him. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Your priority is to take care of yourself and your health. If you can please everyone else, that's great. If not, then it's their problem. You aren't asking for anything unreasonable. They are entitled to their views, just as you are entitled to yours, but it isn't your responsibility to keep them happy. I wish you all the best for the remainder of your trip. And OP says, thanks. We just finished having a nice breakfast and are enjoying a nice cup of coffee now. And back to the post, there is an update. Thanks for the kind wishes, everyone. We went back over to her parents this morning, and her mum wouldn't really speak to either of us, and was being incredibly passive-aggressive. We went ahead and left for the airport to catch a flight home. We are enjoying some much-needed rest at the airport, and are looking forward to getting back home. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for refusing to look after my 26 male, roommate's 25 female, cat while she is on a 3-week vacation? So my roommate loves cats. She'd like to have a dozen, and if it was up to her alone, I have no doubt she would have at least several cats. About a year ago, after she kept bringing it up, I finally relented and let her get a cat. The reason I say let is because we both have to agree. If one of us doesn't agree, it is not allowed by the landlord. On to the story. My roommate informed me that she was going to go on a vacation with her family about a week ago. Nothing more. I just said okay and made conversation asking when she was going, where she was going, usual stuff. That brings us to yesterday. She starts running me through the types of cat food that I should give her cat, how often its litter box needs to be cleaned, what the number of the vet is, and at that point, I just stop her and ask her why she's telling me this. I was plain confused. She looked just as confused and told me that she was just telling me stuff that I needed to know since she is leaving on Monday. I just told her that I am not sure what she's getting at, but I sure hope she's not assuming that I'm going to take care of her cat while she's gone, because that's not happening. Cue a full-blown panic, where she starts tearing into me about how she assumed I wouldn't mind taking care of our cat, and how she doesn't have time to find someone else. I retaliated by saying it's her cat, I've got nothing to do with it, and I suggested that she house him with one of the few animal motel-type deals. That was a no-go, and she has since been crying, panicking, arguing, and begging about it. I obviously can't help but feel bad. The vacation is already paid for. A cat motel is really expensive, especially on short notice, and she doesn't really have friends who she can ask. On my side, it's less so that I do not like cats, which I don't, and more so that I think cleaning up after her cat is disgusting, and I don't want to be forced to look after a cat that can't sleep alone. He will meow all night if she doesn't let him in her room. I talked to my girlfriend and some buddies about it, all of whom agree to some extent that I should just watch the cat this one time. And now in the comments, not the asshole. I am the biggest animal lover, and even I am saying don't do it. If you do, she will pull this on you again in the future. 2. Her pet, her responsibility. She can't assume that you will watch her pet for 3 weeks. Taking care of another person's animal is a big responsibility. Stand your ground. There are plenty of options for her, and if she can afford a 3-week vacation, she should be responsible enough to find proper accommodations for her furry child. Edit to add, don't let her tears and yelling manipulate you into changing your mind. And OP says, 1. Not sure about that. I do think reality hit her in the face. And 2. I grew up with animals, so it shouldn't be hard for me. It's more that I really don't want to. Not the asshole. She shouldn't have assumed that you'd be taking care of her cat when she's gone. First, it is not your pet, and second, what if you were leaving somewhere as well? It's her problem. And OP replies, I told her that as well. I mean, I work full-time to begin with, often work overtime as well, so I'm not sure about the logistics here. Is she expecting me to go home early to feed her cat? Am I supposed to just not go out on the weekends? When it comes to cats, you can easily get a self-feeder and not worry about the cat for a while. That's what I was thinking. Cats are super easy. You only really need to check on them once or twice a week to make sure the feeder and water are full and to clean the litter box. I don't know why the roommate didn't just hire a pet sitter to stop by a couple times a week. It's like $30 a visit max. That is just not true. Cats are extremely routine-oriented, and unless they are used to being left alone for days on end, you can't just suddenly do that to them. Cats are also less resilient than dogs when it comes to missing meals and water. Not to mention, if the cat is used to a litter box that gets cleaned daily, as they all should, you're going to end up with a cat suddenly peeing in places you don't want. OP, not the asshole, but please don't make the cat suffer for your roommate's poor planning. Not the asshole. She should have never assumed that you would watch the cat. The cat is her responsibility, not yours. And OP says, that sure was the idea. And now on to the update. It didn't take me long to make an update as I decided to talk to her today, thanks to everyone that responded. I did a lot of thinking, and a few comments in particular struck a chord. Here and there, people pointed out and put a link between her behavior now and her behavior when I agreed to let her have the cat in the first place. Pushy, manipulative, and consistent asking and demanding until she gets her way, coupled with what I struggle to describe as anything but tantrums. I started realizing that in the time that we have lived together, that's pretty much her go-to when things don't go her way, and the only reason I didn't really notice before is because I do not socialize with her much at all, as she tends to only really exit her room when she needs to cook, wants something, or goes to work. So I initially decided that I needed to sit her down, put down some boundaries, and I also decided I was going to, albeit reluctantly, watch her cat for the 3 weeks. Until the conversation happened, that was. The moment she sat down, she immediately talked over me and said, "I hope you reconsidered since you put me in a bad spot here." It surprised me, and I told her she put herself in a bad spot, and from there, she went into tantrum mode. I barely got a word in the entire time, and she was just switching between demanding that I change my mind, lying by saying we got the cat together so it's my duty, begging, and borderline insulting me. I lost my cool and told her to have fun figuring out what to do with her cat, as I ain't helping, and I walked off. I did a bit of thinking and came to a perhaps rash decision that I'm going to inform the landlord that I am not renewing the lease, finding a new place in the month and a half that I've got left on the lease, and that shouldn't be difficult. I've always got a couple of buddies to fall back on, and while it may leave my roommate in a shitty situation, I doubt she can afford the place on her own. I'm kind of done caring. Even aside from all of the issues described above, I just realized I don't like living with her. Every roommate I've had I get along with. It tends to be fun, and we become friends, or at least friendly. With her, well, she's at best boring. I mean, like I said, in all the time we have lived together, I would hardly call her an acquaintance. That's just not the sort of person I want to live with. So there we are. I haven't informed her yet, and I won't until I contact the landlord. And now in the comments, glad to hear that your lease is almost up. And OP says, me too, to be honest. I'm glad to be rid of her. 2022, new home, new me. Enjoy, OP. She doesn't sound like a pleasant person to be cohabiting with. I kind of hope you eventually show your roommate this, and she gets to read how very, very close she came to having you agree to cat sit before she drove that truck straight off the road. And OP says, yeah, well, maybe I'll send her the link once I'm moved out, lol. At least she can see how thousands of strangers took your side and she's in the wrong. Bad roommates are the worst. I'll never live with roommates again. I'm glad you're getting out. And OP says, I quite liked it in the past, but before her, I only ever had fun social roommates. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for telling Dad that he was selfish for wanting to raise his employee's salary? Jane has been working for my dad for 5 years. She was 18 when she started. She is a very hard-working, kind, and smart girl. Her parents kicked her out when she was 18. She has gotten really close to everyone. Mum loves her. She has spent the last 3 Thanksgivings with us. She reminds everyone of my sister. My sister passed away when she was 14. Everyone in my family has grown attached to her. She's planning to go to school to get a bachelor's next year. It is a great decision as there is no future here. My dad will retire in a few years. This is a crap business which no one will want to take over. The only reason it's able to get by is because most of the employees are old-timers in it because they have nothing better to do. She would be adrift, and she's a really smart kid. She deserves a real shot at doing what she wants to. My dad is upset. He is murmuring something about giving her a raise if he managed his expenses so that she would stay. I told him not to do it. I know that she's scared about moving away and living in a new area. There is a good chance that she would be convinced to stay if she gets a raise. She's scared already. It is a huge change, and my family is the only support system that she has. I'm afraid that she's going to grab the raise and decide to stay. He is hoping that she will take the raise and stay. I told him that it would be a really selfish thing to do. Everyone knows that this business has no legs to stand on. She wants to go to college. She's been talking about it for years. I told him the proper thing to do would be to give her some money for college and wish her well, and not dangle a raise he can't afford to keep her in a shitty situation which she can't get away from. My dad is upset, and I think I was a bit harsh about it. Mum told me that I should have been gentle and try to understand his emotions rather than lashing out at him. And now in the comments, not the asshole. It's one thing if he genuinely wants to help her out with a raise, but it's another thing if he wants to manipulate her into staying. Maybe you were a bit harsh in your delivery, but that's not acceptable behavior as her employer, especially if he cares about her. If he really wants her to stay, he can have a conversation with her as a friend, not as her employer using money as leverage. If they want to maintain a good relationship with her, as if she is a member of the family, then reassuring her of that is what is required. Give her some money to help in school, maintain contact and encouragement on her progress and achievements, and encourage her to come visit when she can. Maybe they all drift apart, or maybe they establish an ongoing family bond and relationship. Not the asshole. You were looking out for your adoptive sister's best interests. How magnanimous for someone to do that as well, especially when there was no benefit to OP to even mention this. Good on them. Not the asshole, OP. You would have felt bad if you didn't say it like you did. I'm going to say no assholes here. He can offer a raise. It is entirely up to her whether or not she takes it, and I can't call you an asshole for being concerned about her future, but it's ultimately not your decision. Quote, it is entirely up to her whether or not she takes it. This part is a bit iffy. She's 23 with no family, an employer who, frankly, inappropriately incorporated her into his own family and is seemingly willing to feed off of her fears to make her stay, while the act of saying, yes, I'll stay, or no, I need to go is hers. The build-up seems to be already out of her hands. I would tread carefully. And now, onto the update. I received a lot of varied opinions from this subreddit. I realized I was too harsh. I talked to Dad, I apologized to Dad, and he told me that he couldn't give her the raise, and even though he was afraid that he would lose touch with her, he wouldn't try to convince her to stay. The funny thing is that she has talked to me about the same thing. She's scared that we would forget about her when she moved away. I was talking about this with my mother-in-law, and she suggested that I look into adult adoption. I talked to a lawyer friend of Dad, and he said that it was legal in our state. I presented it to my parents, and they loved the idea, and they said they would love to do it if she was willing. My dad talked to her about it, and she said yes. The legal process will probably take some time, but I think just wanting to make the sentiment official probably helps them both feel more secure. And now in the comments, that's a surprising twist, but glad to hear. A much better outcome than what I thought would happen, even in the best case scenario. It reminds me of the saying, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. I kind of shudder to think what would happen if he had gone through with it 10 years from now. After reading the first part, I'm glad you said what you did. Paying a person to stay and inhibit their potential is wrong. I understand not wanting them to leave, especially when they've become like family, but you have to let them go, because in the future, you'll only hate yourself for holding them back. Technology is great with helping to keep families and friends close despite long distances. Hell, my grandma was able to FaceTime a foreign exchange student that she hadn't seen in over 30 years. Would I be the asshole for ending gift exchanges with our adult children because I got a terrible gift? This is the first year that our sons, 20 and 21, have significant others to spend the holidays with. As a courtesy, and to make things easier on them, we planned our holiday celebration for the weekend before, and offered to make this a new tradition going forward so there was no fighting over who went where on Christmas Day. We gifted the oldest and his fiancée a vacation, and our youngest and his girlfriend an appliance suite for their new home. Obviously, these were physically large gifts that couldn't be opened in our home, so I handmade each of them small, personalized ornaments tailored to each of their interests to open after dinner. My oldest and his fiancée bought nothing for my husband and gifted me a used book from a bargain bin. The 99-cent sticker was still on it, and a pack of novelty paper. The youngest, on the other hand, made an elaborate show of gifting my husband an expensive piece of machinery he had been wanting for his garage. Once everyone quieted back down, his girlfriend handed me a grocery bag, declaring to everyone in attendance that they stopped at a gas station on the way to our house and grabbed my favorite snacks. The bag contained a dusty box of Ritz crackers and what I can only assume to be leftover candy from Halloween. At the bottom of the bag was a coffee cup. When I pulled it out, his girlfriend laughed and said, "Oh yeah, my grandma got me that hideous thing. I thought you might like it." I was speechless. Needless to say, I was more than a bit upset and hurt by the whole thing, but I just bit my tongue and started talking to my mum about her Christmas plans. I don't expect them to reciprocate with expensive gifts, but even a personal note or something with some thought would have been nice. Instead, I feel like they purposefully tried to embarrass me in front of the whole family. Hubby is convinced they are just clueless when it comes to the whole gift-giving thing, but I believe it was calculated and malicious. I have always been the planner and gift-giver in our relationship, so I want to drop down the rope on any future gifts. My resolve was hardened even more today when none of them even bothered with a Merry Christmas text or phone call, but hubby says that doing away with future gifts would make me the asshole. Info, just to answer some of the repeated questions, I am stepmom, not bio-mom, although we have had custody since the boys were 3 and 4. The expensive gifts on our part were not the norm and were given in the 2 weeks prior to the party, so for all intents, we only have handmade gifts for them to open at the party. My entire family was in attendance: dad and stepmom, mum, sister, nephew, and my best friend. In-laws were to have been there as well, but mother-in-law had emergency surgery the day prior. Past gift-giving has always been thoughtful. Mother's Day, I received a mother's ring as a joint gift, and previous Christmas, oldest got me a necklace, and youngest made me an amazing ornament for my tree. Both have been dating their girlfriends for give or take 2 years. This is the first time they have gone to their girlfriends' families and not been with us on Christmas Day. First, I think the reason I felt singled out is because the boys and I have always been close. Hubby even comments all the time that they call and talk to me all the time, and not him. That's part of the reason that I was so shocked. Secondly, the way the youngest son's girlfriend went about it was very deliberate in terms of announcing they stopped on the way here. Almost mean girlish. And now in the comments, sounds like there is more to the story than one Christmas. You gifted a 20-year-old a vacation with his girlfriend. How long have they been dating? Your 21 owns a house with his girlfriend and you gave them an appliance suite. These are huge, expensive gifts. Honestly, they seem too young for gifts of these size. Did you happen to help them own the house? I understand a 20-year-old's being useless, but the girlfriend seems odd. A 20-year-old doesn't want to at least make an effort for her boyfriend's mum? Not even a candle or a scarf. Actively saying she thought that you'd like something she described as hideous. Drop the expensive gift. Give them socks or something, all in something personal. If they complain about no longer having huge gifts, that gives you a hint on how you raised them. Everyone sucks here. I hate this idea that somehow the woman should be responsible for gift buying. It was his mum, and you are going to call the girlfriend odd for not doing the emotional work of picking out a gift for her. No way. No, it's totally normal to tell someone that I got this gift from my grandmother, but I thought it was ugly, but here, you will like it. Smiley face. Not the asshole. 21 is an adult and old enough to know how to buy a proper gift. Those gifts were horrible, and I don't blame you for not wanting to go through a repeat of that experience next year. I was wondering if this was a prank or something while reading. The book may have been a thoughtless gift, but the crackers and ugly grandma mug comment was exceptionally weird, and very rude on the girlfriend's part. Since OP says she is close with her stepsons, I would suggest speaking with them and letting them know how she felt. And edit, based on OP's edit, the book was a last-minute, thoughtless gift, and the gas station gift was meant to be offensive. OP, your youngest son's girlfriend sounds horrid. A high school dropout bully who refuses to work and is trying to alienate her boyfriend from his family. Your son really lucked out with that one. Not the asshole. Though I think you should continue with the gift exchange, but switch to giving them the same caliber gifts they've given you. It's the thought that counts after all. I've been 21 before, and I remember looking forward to gifts from certain people because I knew they would be good. I doubt they are as clueless as other commenters seem to want to believe. And now on to the update. So I took the advice of a great many of you, and hubby and I spoke to both boys privately. The eldest has legitimately been extremely stressed with his job, and the book was a last-minute grab on his part. Turns out he was embarrassed to admit that he hates the career path that he chose, and was afraid of his dad being disappointed in him. It turned into a really productive conversation about his future, and reassuring him that it is totally fine to change your mind on a career path if it isn't what you thought it was going to be. So yay on that front. Youngest, the girlfriend hates me. Apparently I'm too overbearing because I said she needs to get a GED and a job to help build for their future. She thinks making money playing online games is sufficient. According to her, my beliefs are old and sexist because I told my son that if she didn't want to get a job and he was okay with that, she should at the very least take on more of the chores at their house. He has been working 60+ hours a week and was too embarrassed to admit that he didn't have any money for a gift for me after spending money on her family and her siblings. She told him she would handle it, and he was blindsided by the gas station gift. We talked about things, and his dad offered to return his gift if money was tight, but he refused. Unfortunately, he is extremely enamored with her and doesn't see the negatives in her behavior. She wants him to cut all contact with me since I'm not his real mom. So far, he has told her that that isn't an option. I won't be calling him unless it has been more than a week or two since we have heard from him. I don't foresee a path forward with a girlfriend that I'm comfortable with, so I told my son that I will be polite, but I will not be trying to develop a relationship with her any further, and I am cancelling upcoming get-togethers to give him and me a break. And to address gift giving, ultimately, I am taking the initiative to drop the rope on gift giving. It caused too much stress all the way around, and if it isn't fun and thoughtful, why bother? Hubby and I agreed to revisit things in the event that grandchildren ever come into the picture, but we both hope that that won't happen for quite a while. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for assuming I'd inherit my mother's house?" So my, female 20s mother, raised me and my sister, who's in her 20s as well, as a single parent in a single income household. We have rented our whole lives and grew up low middle class. We never went without food or other essentials, but didn't have the luxuries of many wants. I started investing when I was 17 through my mother, and have been somewhat successful through it. I have accumulated enough money to afford a down payment on a house in our neighborhood/city. I have decided to pursue a second degree at college to further my career and job opportunities, and currently have a part-time job, which is not enough to support a mortgage. I also currently rent with a roommate. My mother and I have an extremely good relationship, and I used to joke growing up with her that when I'm older and have money, I'd buy a house and let her live with me so she doesn't have to worry about her living situation, a mortgage, paying rent when she's older. I told my mother about my plan to buy a house and pitched the idea that I'd give her the money as a down payment and she would pay the mortgage. She has a very stable job now and can afford to keep up a mortgage. The down deposit was the issue as she didn't have enough saved to afford our city. She didn't want to feel burdened to me, but I really want to do this for her. I would move in and contribute some money in rent for utilities and mortgage. It is a beneficial situation for the both of us. Eventually, in 20 plus years when my mum retires, or whenever she wants to retire, I should have a stable career and be able to take over the remainder of her mortgage if she still had one. We were all agreed on this and both extremely excited about starting the process. I was fine with the house being in my mother's name, but this is where the conflict came up. When I agreed for it to be in my mother's name, it's because I'd still be able to live there, would inherit it in the future, and it would eventually be in my name anyway. My mother disagreed, and said that she would leave it to both me and my sister 50-50. I didn't understand as my sister was not contributing financially to this house while I was. I told my mother that I would not give her the money for a down deposit if I didn't solely inherit it in the future. She called me selfish for making her leave my sister with nothing, but I disagreed. My sister has never had much focus or priority on her future or career and is quite materialistic. She hardly saves and has a boyfriend who she will 98% marry eventually and have children with. I personally want to be child-free, and knowing my sister, she'll believe that she is more deserving as she'll have a family. Also, if she knew about my mother and I were buying a house but still inheriting it in the future, there is 0% chance that she would save for her own place. She would wait till our mother passed and assume that she'd be able to move into it. Am I the asshole for demanding and assuming that I would inherit my mother's house? And edit, sorry for not clarifying, I would be paying the deposit, plus at least 40% of the mortgage over time. My bank denied my application for a loan. And now in the comments, tough call to be honest, but why don't you save yourself the headache? Put the house in your name and charge your mum rent. OP replies, thank you for the advice. Honestly, I had never considered that. I just wanted her to have the security of knowing that she owned a house. Something that she had always talked about as we grew up. I might have a talk with her about this option though. I think this would be the best option. She still has security, but you retain ownership. OP would be better off saving the money for now. Housing costs are extremely high right now. If they wait till the market drops, you can get a better house for less money and lower payments, assuming they're in the US. Cries in the Australian housing market. Not the asshole. I would never put money into a house without it being in my name. I don't care if your mother agrees with you on everything today, she can change her mind at any time, and God knows what her will says if she has one. And OP replies, I wholeheartedly trust her, but now I'm considering not having my name on the deed. She just knows more about these sorts of things, and I figured it would be easier. Do not trust her. This is a huge investment. Put your name on the house, even if she swears that she will leave you the house in full eventually. If you don't get your name on the deed, you will regret it. Not the asshole. Wait until you can fully afford a home in your own name. Then buy your home and allow mum to move in. And OP replies, my mum wants to buy a house now and is already looking 3 hours plus outside of the city. She wants to stay in the city but is financially scared about not owning a house at her age. I am now seriously considering buying a house in my name, but I don't think I'm as desirable to the bank for a loan as my mother is, as I'm still in school. Her desire to buy a house is hers to deal with. You were generous and she is not matching that generosity. Hold off on the house until you can own it independently. She'll figure out what works for her. You can take care of her in other ways. And OP says, thank you to everyone who commented. It has given me some mixed signals, but I do know that the way that we were going about it was not in our best interest. I will be taking all of your advice in, and will be contacting a financial advisor and/or lawyer if I choose to pursue this. I want to just point this out. The house was never a gift. A lot of people assume that, so I'm sorry for any misconception, but it was always supposed to be our house. I don't think I'll be responding to any more comments for a while, but thank you for all of the advice. And now on to the update. To start this off, I have decided to not purchase a house at this moment. I sat down to talk about this decision with my mum and gave the following requests that would make me comfortable with purchasing a house with her. Both of our names would be on the deed/mortgage with joint tenancy. This would mean that when either of us passed, it would automatically be passed on to the other and not counted as estate. This was the one that I liked the best. I donate a portion of the down deposit, not all, and consider it a gift. After discussing with an estate lawyer and financial advisor, we do it in a very legal way, with signed documents and everything, dictating my percentage, my mother's, a maximum payoff my sister could receive if I wanted to buy her share. I saw this in a comment, etc. And I said that I would only consider this option if my percentage was 51% or above, both names on the mortgage and deed. Or just nothing, and we both do our own thing. My mother took the day to discuss these options and said she didn't feel comfortable not leaving anything for my sister when she passes, and like a lot of you guys said, I realized we just aren't compatible. I tried to tell her why I wanted it this way so I would have financial security in the future, but also so I could help her, but she said that I was being heartless to not consider my sister's future. She tried to negotiate option 3, but at only 50% guaranteed to me. I know that selfishly that is not a beneficial situation for me to be in, but I just can't bring myself to agree to that. I would pay for all of the deposit and then 40% of the mortgage and still get half even if I didn't do the following. This would also set me back years to buy a house that I would actually own. I was also worried after reading comments that she would go and leave her portion to my sister, making it 50-50 anyway. My mother said that I was selfish for going back on my word and forcing her to choose between me and my sister, and that I should realize I'm a part of a family before seeing her or my sister again. I feel bad for putting conditions on this offer, but this was never a gift or anything like that. It was an opportunity for the both of us to buy a house, but all of our options don't seem to be mutually beneficial. We haven't talked for the past 2 days, and I don't really see the situation having much more closure to this. My plan is to finish school and work for a few years before committing to buying a home, but thank you for all of the advice that you have given me. I'm sad that it ended like this, but hope not too much damage was done in the long run. If you have any further questions, I would be happy to answer them. And now in the comments, your mother is very worried about the prospect of not leaving an inheritance for your sister, yet it seems to have escaped her notice that if you pay for half of the house and end up with 50% while your sister also gets 50%, she left nothing to you. You would be tying up a lot of money for decades, missing out on other opportunities for investment in order to facilitate an inheritance for your sister. I think that you are better off not being a part of this. Save your resources to buy your own home. Yeah, OP's mother was definitely planning on leaving her entire half to the sister. I'm so sorry, but it really is best for you to just buy your own house. One could envision a future where the sister inherited 50% of the house and then demanded that you pay her rent for her half, tried to move in, or tried to force a sale. All of this violates your own security. That sounds like a super tough situation, but you shouldn't feel bad. You are a part of a family, but it was your mother's decision to bring your sister into the deal, not yours. She chose this path, not you. How could you be expected to do all of the work for your sister, who would do nothing, to get half? Your mum is simply being unreasonable. You are still not the asshole. I think that the OP is actually very lucky that her mother made her intentions known before she committed her resources to purchasing a house. The OP was okay with the house being in her mother's name and took it on faith that it would be left to her. Had her mother not disabused her of that opinion, she could well have proceeded with the purchase of the house and then had a nasty shock when her mother died, and at best, she was left with half of the house. At worst, she could have found out the house was left mostly or wholly to her sister, if her mother decided that she needed it more. Her mother could also have left her 50% of the house, but given the sister the right to occupy it for life, in which case the OP wouldn't benefit from the house until old age, if at all, while being on the hook for maintenance costs. Am I the asshole for demanding my sister never enter my home again after destroying my books? So I am an avid reader. I have a whole library in one room of my house, wall-to-wall bookcases, a reading chair, etc., and I have the whole set of Harry Potter books on my specials bookcase, which is the case where I keep my collector's edition and books that are sentimental to me. The reason why I keep them is because my grandfather bought me 1 to 4 in the year the 4th was released. He died of cancer 4 months later, a week before Christmas. I bought the rest of the books as they were released, due to the fact that they were the last things that he ever bought me. My sister, 27, came over at Christmas this year. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder 15 years ago, and it causes her to act out sometimes. She usually acts out with words but not actions. She got upset at me because I didn't spend a lot of money on her for Christmas this year. I bought her a pair of PJs, some headphones, a phone case, 3 pairs of Lululemon yoga pants, and a pair of slippers. It seems that it was one of her off days because she yelled at me, called me a kun and a buh, and said that I don't care about her. All I care about are my stupid books. She then stormed out of the room. I thought nothing of it until she came back with a smirk and said, maybe you shouldn't value books over family. When I went to my room, she had taken back my Harry Potter books and ripped the covers off of them, ripped pages out of them, and ripped the pages up. She did this to a few other books which are easily replaceable, so whatever. I blew up at her. I kicked her out of my house and told her not to come back until she apologizes for what she did, and from now on, she will be supervised 100% of the time unless she is using the bathroom. My family is furious with me. They have told me that I need to apologize to my sister due to the fact that it was her mental illness. I also have been told that books are just paper, buy some new ones, you can afford it. I feel bad, but these books mattered to me since they were from my grandfather, and no one seemed to understand that it's not the monetary value, it is the sentimental value. Am I the asshole? And edit to add, I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters. My dad, 1 brother and 1 sister are fully supportive of me putting my foot down. None of them read, so they aren't fully comprehending, but they understand where I'm coming from since she did something like this to my brother before. My mum, 2 other brothers, and 1 other sister are the ones on my case about this. The sister who did this is refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing and has been bad-mouthing me. Everyone but my mum was there for this event. Parents can't be in the same room since their divorce, so we do 2 Christmas events every year, so they seem to be throwing sides. My mum has been enabling my sister for years, so no surprise that she is on her side. And now in the comments, not the arsehole. And your sister can't use her mental illness to act out. She knew exactly what she was doing, as she went right to the books that meant the most. Additionally, your family is enabling her and not providing the support or boundaries that will allow her to improve. Don't let her back in. And OP replies, she has done this when I was a kid as well. She asked to read some of my books. I was around 18 or so, she was 12, and I let her choose what she wanted to read. A week later, I had to get something from her room, and I found the books with all of the covers ripped off. I thought she had grown up since then. And someone replies to OP, "Hi OP, I'm a licensed psych clinician. While your sister may have bipolar disorder, her behavior you have described is neither caused by nor indicative of bipolar disorder. Feeling entitled and slighted, and therefore destroying your siblings' possessions out of spite, is just asshole behavior. Your family, like many families, sounds like they find it easier to force you to make peace than it is for them to get your sister to act kindly. It's something that will continue for as long as you accommodate it. You are not the asshole, and your family would be much happier in the long term if they stopped excusing her behavior and built up some healthy boundaries and expectations. But it sounds like you'll be largely on your own in terms of maintaining your own boundaries. Not the asshole. Mental illness is a very real, legit thing. Spite and malice, however, are not mental illness. Rewording, being mentally ill is not an excuse for being an asshole. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. No, I'm bipolar. My behavior is still on me, and it's on your sister too. It's not a freaking excuse to behave like a deranged, undisciplined freaking toddler. Crap like her behavior gives those of us managing bipolar a bad name. She destroyed sentimental property. Until she forks over a lot of money, proves she's in therapy and on some meds, and gives a buttload of sincere apologies, she would be dead to me. And your family, supporting that kind of bullcrap behavior, they can suffer her. Away from you, preferably. Save yourself, avoid all of them. OP replies, she told me she's on meds. She is also refusing therapy because therapists are useless. I'm used to her verbal attacks, but this is a whole new level. She ripped up some books when she was a child, and I let her know she was never allowed to touch my books again until she grew up and became an adult. And now onto the update. My sister called me today. It was not to apologize. She needed to borrow money for gas to be able to get an extra overtime shift. I asked her, "Are you going to acknowledge what you did to my books?" And she said, "Look, I just need to borrow some money. I asked you for a TV for Christmas because mine broke, and you didn't want to buy me a new one, but you spent $800 on brother because he needed something." I told her, "You asked me for a TV 4 days before Christmas, and I had already spent my budget on you, and I was offering you my 2-year-old 40-inch TV to replace the one that broke. It also does not give you an excuse to destroy the books that Granddad gave me before he died. I will not be giving you anything until you offer me a sincere apology, stop bad-mouthing me to the family, and acknowledge that you did something wrong. Then we can discuss getting you a new therapist, since this isn't the first time you have done something like this to the family." She called me a useless piece of crap and said that she didn't badmouth me to anyone. Apparently everyone is making it up because they don't like her, blah blah blah. Nothing was her fault, it was all my fault because I didn't buy her a TV. I spent $300 over budget on my brother, everyone hates her, whatever. I told her to go screw herself, and don't contact me again until she grows up. I then sent a message to the family group text saying that I will not be discussing any further with any of them regarding the situation with sister, and she is no longer welcome in my life until she gets help or proper medication or more therapy for her issues, and she must acknowledge what she did was wrong. My mum, 2 brothers, and other sister group called me. I explained on the phone call. They all agreed that she was out of control and she needs to get help. I told them I've washed my hands of her until the time that she has gotten said help. I am now no contact with my sister and I feel relieved. Our next post is titled, "Am I the arsehole for outing myself as autistic to make a point?" I'm a college student in a class with a guy who behaves really inappropriately. He's not important. A while ago, myself and some other classmates were planning on making a formal complaint about his behavior, and a classmate who I'll call Jessica objected because she said the guy has autism. Someone asked how she knew he was autistic, and basically, she doesn't. She has a lot of assumptions based on nothing, but she says she's a psych major, so that makes her an expert or something. I piped up that I have autism, and it doesn't excuse any of that guy's behavior. Jessica said that didn't make sense because I don't display any symptoms of autism. I said that I obviously have several symptoms because I've been professionally diagnosed as autistic, but I still manage not to be a complete dick. I thought that was it and we would move on, but Jessica kept talking about that guy having autism and called us ableist. I said she has no evidence that he is disabled. She argued that he acts autistic, but there was actually no evidence that I have autism and basically called me a liar. I pulled up some of my disability paperwork on my phone and offered to show anyone who doubted me. She barely even glanced at it and started accusing me of gatekeeping autism. I wasn't gatekeeping, I just have experience that contradicts her wild-ass assumptions. She said that just because that guy isn't comfortable telling us he's disabled doesn't make his autism less valid. No one except for her ever said that guy is autistic. She hasn't even talked to him about it. She just expects us to take her random diagnosis of this guy as gospel. I was pissed all the way off at that point and said she's just a psych major at a community college and doesn't know what the F she's talking about, and then I left. Now I just ignore Jessica completely. So recently, as disciplinary steps are being taken against that guy, Jessica has apparently made claims that I bully her and how it was inappropriate to just tell everyone that I have autism. She says I made people uncomfortable and that I put pressure on other disabled students to disclose their private information. The professor is trying to sort out all of the class's grievances and asked that I apologize. I refused because I think that's bullcrap. I haven't bullied Jessica. I just don't talk to her. She's the only one who's had a problem with me saying I'm autistic, and that's because she's mad that I didn't agree with her. The professor said that because of my autism, I have to seriously consider that I might be in the wrong, even if I don't immediately see how I could be. So here I am. Am I the asshole for disclosing my disability status, telling Jessica that she didn't know what she was talking about, and refusing to speak to her? Edit. I forgot to mention, I eventually did ask that guy if he had autism or ever told anyone that he did, and he said, I am not a frickin' arsler like you, and if I was, I wouldn't frickin' tell anyone. And now in the comments, everyone is making this complicated. You asked a student to stop diagnosing other classmates with autism without being qualified to do so, because it offended you as an actual person with autism. She is now retaliating against you because of it. Go as high up the chain as you can and file a grievance for harassment, and tell her frickin' psych professor that she's diagnosing people with autism without any clinical interaction. If she wants to work in that field, she doesn't want to lose her license for malpractice before she even gets it. And edit, I was so outraged I forgot to render verdict, not the asshole. And double edit, instead of asking, you should have just straight up told that guy, hey, you know Jessica is going around telling her classmates that you're autistic? That would have had a much better result directed at the actual offender, not you. And OP replies, thank you, I will definitely take that advice. Also, don't forget the whole you don't act autistic bit. She seems to have a very biased, incorrect, and dare I say bigoted view of what autism is. She's not only randomly diagnosing people, she's also rejecting legitimate diagnoses because they don't fit some mold, which to be honest sounds grossly offensive in this specific case. You are not the asshole. Take this higher than your professor because they are being ableist. Jessica shouldn't be diagnosing anyone with anything. It is purely unethical and should be brought up to your school's ethics board. And OP says, I think you're right. Thank you. Not the asshole. You're ableist? That's rich, when she doesn't even want to acknowledge your diagnosis. She doesn't feel bullied, she's embarrassed. She wanted to appear in authority, and you proved she doesn't know an asshole from an elbow, which is the reason that you should just ignore her. As a side note, your professor is also being an asshole. They are trying to use your disability to manipulate you into making their life easier. And OP replies, thank you. I really didn't realize how shitty my professor was being until people started pointing that out. I just kind of assumed they would always do what was best for the class. And now back up to the post, we have edit 2. Thank you for all of the insight and advice. I really didn't realize how shitty our professor was being until some of you guys pointed it out. I just assumed they would always do what was best for the class, but now I understand that that isn't the case here. I've also learned that the professor let that guy cause trouble way longer than they should have. I truly have no idea why he let this get so out of control. I emailed some people last night. My mentor, my disability advocate, and the Disabled Student Union president have gotten back to me already. I have been advised not to bother attending or doing homework for that class until this is resolved. And to edit 3, the professor sent me an email saying that I created a hostile learning environment and he's ejecting me from the class and he's reported me to the dean for abusive behavior. I just forwarded it to my disability advocate. I had a wee bit of a panic attack, but I'm okay now. And now, onto the update. Hey y'all, I really can't thank you enough for your advice. If it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't have realized who the real asshole was. The night I posted, I emailed my mentor, a different professor in another department, about what was going on. She went and confronted him in person that morning. My mentor must have scared him, because he decided to kick me out of the class and frame me as the problem student immediately after talking to her. He also tried to use Jessica as a witness against me. Their story was that I was abusive and disruptive, and using my autism and the threat of reporting people to disability services to intimidate them and get away with it. He claimed that the only reason he didn't report me sooner was that he was trying to be considerate of my disability. The professor didn't know that I had already contacted the dean, so when he came in with his version of events, it immediately looked like he was retaliating against me. It also didn't help his case that, unlike him, I had never had any complaints before. At the same time he sent the email kicking me out, he sent the other students an email telling them not to get involved without his permission. Before, whenever anyone in the class said anything about wanting to talk to other staff or admins, he would lie or guilt trip them into dropping the issue or letting him handle it for them. He said that they didn't know the whole story and they would get in trouble if they didn't stay out of it. I have friends in the class, and when I told them what was going on, they dropped it in protest and started coming forward with their own stories and proof. As of Monday, the class is being taught by a substitute. The whole thing is still being investigated, but I think it's safe to say he won't be back. Here are some other details that I didn't have time to get into or came to light after my original post. About that guy, I was acquainted with him before the semester started. He already knew that I had autism, and never gave me any reason to believe that he had it too. That's why I was immediately skeptical about Jessica's diagnosis. That guy just thinks being the worst is funny. He's a dick, plain and simple. He had multiple behavior complaints against him from other classes in the beginning of the year. Ours was the only class he was still acting like that in because the professor never tried to stop him. He has been actively bullying Jessica online and in person because he doesn't like her telling everyone that he's autistic. He sided with us and told administration that Jessica is a liar, and the professor has been sending him nudes and trying to get in his pants since the first week of school. He only told me that on Saturday. I had no idea, and now I kind of feel sorry for him. It doesn't seem like the admins are going to punish him because of how messed up that was. About Jessica, Jessica isn't really a psych major. This is her first semester, and she's not in any psychology classes. She has a big weird crush on that guy, which is understandable. Dumpster fire personality aside, he's really hot. I think she made up the autism thing to protect him and thought that he would be grateful to her for it. She seems to think she can change him or win him over, but Jessica isn't conventionally attractive, and that guy's not really the type to overlook someone's appearance. Jessica accused me of making everyone exclude her. I really didn't do anything but ignore her. If other people are doing it too, that's between them. She also blames me for everything that guy says or does to her. She claims I'm using my evil autism powers to make him do that somehow. If I had any control over him, nobody would have needed to report him in the first place. I don't think that guy even knew Jessica existed until she pissed him off. At first I thought she targeted me because I embarrassed her, but now I think she's jealous because he pays more attention to me, and she evidently saw me on his Instagram when she was liking all his photos from the last 5 years. And now in the comments, what did I just read? I was waiting for the update and assumed that it would be bad, but that is some soap opera level drama. Glad you're okay and have support. And OP replies, thanks. Yeah, my issue with that professor seemed kind of petty compared to the other complaints he got. I'm glad you helped bring this creepy behavior to light. Who knows how many students he sexually harassed previously and would have harassed in the future. OP says, that part still really freaks me out. I don't actually know how many people the professor was harassing. Somehow he made everyone doubt themselves so much that no one felt like they could talk about what he was doing to them, except for maybe that guy. He was planning to blackmail the professor for better grades all along, but then he decided to just expose him for personal reasons. Lamau? That guy really is that guy. He's obviously a total asshole, but I've got to give him some credit and a slow clap. And OP says, he's certainly very proud of himself now. He keeps comparing himself to Helen of Troy. You know, the one who was so hot that guys started a whole war over her? That Helen of Troy? Evil autism powers is hysterical. You need to make up a superhero name now and just start introducing yourself with it. I'm glad it all worked out and your professor was outed as the lying liar. You didn't deserve all of this drama and hostility. Somehow, even with that guy being a clear asshole, I still felt bad for him too. No one deserves a professor, or anyone in authority, sending them nudes, asking for sex, and not taking no for an answer. Then he also has a fellow student creeping on him too, being protective and weird, spreading falsehoods about him. Good on you for how you handled this from start to finish, and good luck with the rest of your semesters and finals next month. And OP says, thanks, I've learned a lot from this. Am I the asshole for saying I prefer sushi to children? Okay, so straight to it. My husband and I, both in our early 30s, have been together for over a decade and made the decision to not have kids. I like kids. I have nieces and nephews. We just don't want them for our own reasons. He had a vasectomy, which only a few people know about. Our families are aware that we don't want kids, as they've asked this before during different major life events. Our wedding, for instance. We recently bought a 3-bedroom home with a nice yard in a nice area. Excited to show our new home to family and friends. Major upgrade to our previous home. We hosted a housewarming. During the party, one of my sibling-in-laws, Alex, made a few indirect comments about all this space and kids would love it in our new house, etc. Eventually, they asked point blank when we were having kids. I made a light-hearted joke about it, which is my go-to for this question. Oh, well, I like sushi too much to have to give it up for a pregnancy. Plus, not drinking for pregnancy and breastfeeding? No thanks. I tried to make it very light-hearted and laugh it off. Most people just laughed along. That seemed to anger Alex, and I was told, children are a joy, and a good mother puts her kids before everything else. I agreed, children are a joy. I like spending time with the nieces and nephews, and obviously I can't be a good mum if I chose sushi over kids, so I just won't be a mum. That's paraphrased. Still trying to brush it off in a gentle way because I'm not trying to start a fight by telling them to stop asking in front of everyone because I know my tone will be seen as rude and abrasive. We move on, but Alex is still annoyed and making little comments in their group about how flippant I am about it and how when it finally happens, then I'll understand. My husband heard this and said jokingly, well, if she gets pregnant, that'll be a problem for the divorce lawyers. That seemed to piss them off more, but they stopped. With holidays coming up, we have not been invited to Alex's usual Halloween bonfire. When husband spoke to his parents, they told him that Alex was annoyed that we were so careless and callous about our child-free status and to say what we did, and they realized that we had taken permanent steps to ensure that we never had kids. That we know they had to do IF, or I'm guessing IVF, to have kids, etc., and we are assholes to just not care. I feel bad because they did do IF and lots of fertility treatments to have their kids, and even then, they still had a few miscarriages. I can't imagine wanting kids and struggling to have them, and then to deal with miscarriages. But at the same time, I am so tired of justifying living my life how I want. Am I the asshole? And now in the comments, not the asshole. A good mother puts her children before anything else is a really weird thing to say to someone who isn't even a frickin' parent. Yet, your non-existent children have more rights than you, an adult very much alive woman. Alex probably. Not the asshole. Just because they had difficulty having children, they don't get to judge you for choosing to not have children. Regardless, they also don't get to bring up the topic then act hurt when you give an honest, non-offensive answer. I empathize with people who have difficulty having children, but that empathy stops the moment they start acting like the rest of us are obligated to have kids simply because of their problems. You don't get to be mad or offended by someone else's choices not to have kids, and especially not when you are the one who keeps bringing the issue up in the first place. Often, if everyone else around them is pregnant, they're mad about that too. Not the asshole. My go-to funny answer to that question is, I also like dolphins, but I don't have one of those either. Alex is taking this way too personally. And OP says, I like that. I think if I need a funny comment, I'll just use one about cats, since we already joke in a crazy cat lady. Unfortunately, the cat is allergic to children. And back up to the post, there is an edit to add. To the few people messaging and commenting about me being an asshole for not wanting kids, I'm not asking if I'm the asshole for my kid decision, I'm asking if I'm the asshole for saying the sushi over kids comment. And to everyone else, holy guacamole, I am overwhelmed. I never expected to get so many responses. I'm trying to read all of them, and the advice given. I feel terrible my joke was taken the way it was, and that I hurt my in-laws. I truly never meant for that to happen. After the bonfire this weekend, we will be reaching out to have a heart-to-heart, if they'll accept it. Either way, I will be apologizing for hurting their feelings, let them know I love their kids and them, but I will also be firmly putting down any further attempts to discuss our child-free status if the conversation is about changing our minds. I have not told them our reasons for being child-free, so I think perhaps if they are willing to listen, I'll explain to them, and hopefully the conversation can be constructive. I don't want to go into the holidays with my husband on the outs with his brother. Thank you all. And now on to the update. Y'all, I was blown away by the amount of comments I received. I was super split because I could see both sides of our situation, and I'm still a bit split to be honest, but I figured I would give an update. Husband and I sent Halloween goodie bags for the nieces and nephews with his parents since they were both going to the bonfire. We have sent them that way before when we couldn't attend, and no matter what issues are between us adults, I don't want the kids to think that they were forgotten. I did tell Alex's wife that we would be sending the bags and why, and also apologizing and hoping that she didn't feel as if I was stepping on toes or anything, but I thought they would understand and put the kids' feelings before whatever situation that we had. I also apologized if they took any offense to my comments. She thanked me and promised to talk with us soon. My husband called Alex, told them that they/we needed to talk. It ended up with just the two of them having a heart-to-heart, and my husband updated me later with both Alex's and his wife's permission. Alex admits to being a bit bitter about our apparent ease of deciding to be child-free. Husband explained that decision was agonized over, including therapy to ensure my and his peace of mind. Alex also went on to say that they have been trying to get pregnant, but likely won't be able to again. Apparently his sperm count is too low, and it was recommended that they stop the fertility treatments on Alex. I was devastated to hear that. I knew his wife had some issues carrying, but we did not realize just how much they struggled on both ends to get pregnant. Alex had been playing with the idea of asking my husband to donate sperm as the only brother, and hearing that he had a vasectomy kind of broke that dream for him. Apologies were made all around. Alex admits he took my jokes in a way that he knew I wouldn't mean, and he would stop asking about my kids, only future cats. We apologized for unintended hurt. Alex sent me a package in the mail, a pair of those metal balls to hang off my truck hitch. I think it's safe to say that while it may take a bit for the relationship to feel back to normal, we are safely on our way there. And now in the comments, I'm glad that things worked out and everyone was able to clear the air. Communication works wonders. It makes sense why Alex had such a big reaction if he was building himself up to ask his brother for, a contribution. I hope your in-laws will consider adopting in the future if they still want to expand their family. There are so many kids that need a loving and supportive home. Thanks for the update, OP. And OP replies, I think they might consider that after they've taken time to accept their current situation. Thank you for the support. And just an FYI, sorry if this has already been said, vasectomy doesn't prevent your husband from donating sperm, if that's something you wish to do. It's called sperm aspiration, and it's more expensive than the traditional routes, but not more so, from my understanding, than, say, donor egg cells. I cannot believe this touching, empathetic update ends with, and then he sent me truck nuts. Incredible. Glad to hear that y'all are patching things up. And OP says, out of all the weird crap we've ever sent to each other, it is legit my favorite. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for publicly calling out the school nurse? In this story, there is me, 34 male, my daughter with type 1 diabetes, 11 female. So my daughter has type 1 diabetes and has been diagnosed since she was 5. For the most part, she handles it like a champ, but she's a kid. Sometimes it sucks. I don't blame her when she's upset about it. She's gotten very good at managing how she's feeling and speaking up when she feels off or wrong. That said, she's 11, and the nurse and 2 of her block teachers are meant to supervise when she gives herself medication. We had a 504 plan in place at her school and have had it in place since diagnosis. I have conferences with the teachers every year, and since she started at middle school this year, her new nurse and administrative staff. I let my daughter speak her piece and let her feel heard. She has struggled with non-school extracurricular before, ignoring her concerns when she says she doesn't feel good because she looks fine. This school year started the end of August and we met a week prior. I got a call Monday afternoon while I was at work saying that the school bus driver had to call the ambulance for my daughter on the way home because she fainted. My job is 40 minutes away, so I said I would meet them at the hospital. She was awake and chatting with her nurse when I got there. Her blood sugar had dropped very, very low while she was at school. She was feeling better and didn't seem too bothered, so I took her home once allowed and let her pick a movie to watch. Once the movie was over, I asked if she didn't feel good at school. I needed to make sure that she wasn't ignoring her symptoms and had eaten lunch. She told me that she felt weird just before the end of the day and checked her sugar with her teacher, who had sent her to the nurse when it was really low. When she told the nurse she needed glucagon, the nurse said no and she should take it at home when she gets there. At this point, I was raging. The nurse did not give her her medication and then sent her to the bus. The 504 plan in place has a stipulation that if her blood sugar is too low at the end of the day, she cannot take the bus home. The nurse is supposed to give her glucagon, and I get called to pick her up/arrange for someone to take her home. The bus drivers aren't trained to know what to look for or to give her her medication. I then called the school Tuesday morning to arrange a meeting to talk about what happened. We scheduled it, but it hasn't happened yet. In the meantime, I went wild. I wrote a mile-long Facebook post with pictures of the 504 and the hospital bill and me ranting. It kind of took off and got a lot of attention. Last night, my siblings and coworkers started telling me maybe I went too far in making the post, specifically in my naming the nurse. It was shared in a couple of different pages on Facebook for our county and town, and a lot of people have been making comments on the school board's social medias about the nurse. A lot of the outrage comes from other parents with the kids on 504 or IEP plans. Am I the asshole for calling out the school/nurse? And now in the comments, not the asshole. The nurse neglected a medical plan and your daughter got sick because of it. I would do the same thing. If she can't care for the children and do her job, then she doesn't need to be a nurse. Exactly. You try to kill someone, you deserve to be named and shamed. If anything, OP didn't go far enough. Not the asshole, OP. Not the asshole, and OP might be saving lives by putting this out there. What happens if a kid has an allergic reaction or an asthma attack, and this nurse decides it's not a big deal? She's already shown that she doesn't care about 504s, so she deserves the public dragging. And also, what is it about working as a teacher/school nurse that seems to attract some sadistic people? Not that they're all like that, it's a minority, but nursing, teaching, law enforcement, and being a doctor all seem to attract way more assholes than your average job. I mean, I know it's the power they get, but still, you'd think they could screen applicants for stuff like that. Not the asshole. The nurse was wildly irresponsible for sending a child with a low blood glucose level anywhere, never mind onto a bus. I would have reacted exactly the same way. She put your baby's life at risk, and that is the worst distress someone can cause a parent. That said, just double check with someone in the know to make sure that there are no potential legal ramifications to your post. Perhaps put a disclaimer post out to say that you are speaking to the school and the result of that is pending just to cover yourself. And OP replies, her name is on the school's website as the nurse, but I don't know if that changes anything. Exactly. Plus, most US states have publicly accessible registers of nurses online, New Jersey and Massachusetts coming to mind. All you really did was save others 3 or so steps in the research process. Not the asshole, Jesus freaking Christ. This is the second type of post that I've seen about school staff blatantly ignoring 504. You do not mess with the ADA. Facebook and social media are going to be the least of the school's concerns after this. They can get sanctioned or worse from letting this stuff slide. I would not be surprised if the school nurse got canned after this, and she should be. I definitely agree with not the asshole. People just like to gloss over that the child could have died. It is not on OP to care if she keeps her job or not. OP's job is to safeguard her child. They put these rules in place to ensure that the child is taken care of, but unfortunately there is always one person who thinks they know better. Let them face the consequences of her actions. And now on to the update. In short, the nurse was fired. She was reported to all necessary persons by myself and the school. My daughter is fine, she is in a new school. We are reviewing her treatment and the school plans with doctors. That day, my daughter's last block teacher had gone to the nurse to check in on her because she knew her sugar was too low to go on the bus. She didn't see my daughter there and asked the nurse who told the teacher that she had dismissed her to the bus. Internally, the teacher reported the nurse before I even knew what had happened. My lawyer came to the meeting with me. The school was already in damage control mode and as apologetic as could be. They let me know the nurse was put on leave by the next morning. Their lawyer came with an offer to pay the medical bills. He talked about how they would be meeting with the teachers' union so they could properly move forward with the nurse's dismissal. My lawyer and I left, and he said that they were doing everything they could not to have me sue them. I chose not to sue so long as they covered the hospital bills and damages. For those who asked about the glucagon injection without her passing out, that day her vision went black, she was dizzy, and she was stumbling once in the nurse's office. Other health things, she's getting a CGM and a phone. Regrettably, I was not above bribing her. We are revising her plan and talking to her new school about all of the changes. For those concerned about my using the nurse's name, my lawyer had no concerns since her name was in multiple places associated with the school and her place of employment was on her social media sites. Since during the meeting it was confirmed what happened with my daughter and what she had told me was accurate, he didn't think that she would have any grounds to stand on if she wanted to pursue action against me. For those who commented that I was the arsehole for sharing my daughter's info on Facebook, I have 50 friends who are majority family. I also always check with her when I post pictures and about what I share. That is the easiest place for multiple people to get quick and/or big updates at once. Some of the older family members check Facebook more than their emails. You can be upset that I shared this, but this system has worked for us. Family gets updates of what she's okay with them all knowing. I didn't think my Facebook could share my post, but my privacy settings were open. That has since been fixed. And also, since a few asked, I am my daughter's only parent. Her mother gave up all rights and no longer lives nearby, which is why she is not in the list of emergency contacts. For obvious reasons, I am still upset about it all, but my daughter is acting as if nothing ever happened. She is fitting into her new school well, and she's as happy as ever. Now in the comments, I'm glad to hear this. I'm glad the school did the right thing. If it were me, I'd get that teacher a gift card to Barnes & Noble, Starbucks or Amazon. I'm actually a little sad that you moved your daughter to a different school. She had a teacher who cares enough to check on her in the nurse's office, and the school was proactive about making it right. Bad things happen, but the willingness to address it and fix it is what's really important. And a teacher who goes out of her way to check on her students is worth her weight in gold. Wow, so glad your daughter is okay. She sounds like a real trooper and a special young lady. And to the nurse? What the hell? How in the world did she think it was okay to override a plan in place and send her home in that condition? She obviously should not be in that medical supervisor role. I wonder what her reaction was when she found out your daughter ended up blacking out and in the hospital. Anyway, glad that you pursued this with vigor and that the situation has been as rectified as it can be currently. Best wishes for you and your girl. I guess this is as good as it can get, although I still think the nurse should lose her license. But good for you for standing up for your daughter. Good for her that you did too. And that she attends a different school now, and good for the school to get rid of the nurse. With her record now, I would imagine it's almost the same. I hope no one wants to hire that. Am I the asshole for yelling at my mom when she acted like nothing happened after my dad cheated? My parents have a great relationship. Well, that's what I thought before what happened. My 14 female parents usually have friends over and always tell me that I'm free to have friends over too. So it wasn't a surprise when I unlocked the front door and I could hear my dad and another woman in the kitchen. Since my dad usually calls my name when he hears me opening the door, I thought he probably didn't think that I was home yet. I walked into the kitchen to greet my dad, but then I saw it. He kissed the woman on the cheek, a woman that isn't my mom. Both of them were turned, facing away from the door so they didn't see me. My dad proceeded to flirt with the woman until I threw my bag on the ground to get their attention. They pulled apart, and Dad called out if that was me. I walked into the kitchen and greeted him and the woman, and then I locked myself into my room for the rest of the afternoon. I only came out when my mum came home. I helped my mum put away her things and put her weekly flowers in a vase before turning to her and telling her what I saw. She stayed quiet for a moment and then told me that she'll take care of it and that I shouldn't worry about it anymore. A few days go by and nothing happens. There was no fight, no arguments, no sour faces at each other, no divorce. Nothing that would usually happen to cheaters in movies and stuff. It pissed me off how my mum could continue to joke with my dad after what he did and still cook for him. Yesterday after dinner, when my dad went to bed, I went at her, demanding to know what's wrong with her and how she could go on living a life with a dad who cheated. She sighed and told me to drop it, but I didn't. I asked her why she wasn't getting a divorce and why she was putting up with my POS dad. She glared at me and told me to watch my tone and to not disrespect my dad. Finally, I yelled at her, asking why she was defending him, and she told me that she'd explain everything once I cooled down. I told my brother, 17, the whole story so he could know the truth about my dad, but he seemed really irritated. He told me to shut up and not to tell anyone else in the family about my dad. He said that if Mum said she'd handle it, she would. I told him she didn't, and that they were still acting as if it never happened. He glared at me and told me to calm down and talk to my mum like an adult if I wanted to act like one instead of just yelling at her. He also called me an asshole for escalating the situation and making dinners awkward. I don't think I'm the asshole, but whatever. Am I the asshole? My after-school activities got cancelled that day, and I didn't let my parents know beforehand, so they didn't expect me to be home so early. I'm just going to add the timeline. I caught my dad Friday after school, told my mum Friday night after she came home from work, waited, and then went at my mum Monday night. I wrote this post an hour after yelling at her, and I talked to my cousin at 12 a.m. and apologized after school on Tuesday. Now in the comments, you're the asshole. Hear me out. Your parents may be swingers or have an open relationship. You don't know. Please cool off, apologize to your mum for yelling at her, and then calmly ask, so what's going on? Listen with an open mind. I was thinking the same thing. Mum isn't upset because she already knew and dad has permission. These are the types of things that you don't talk to your kids about. You caught him, let mum handle it. My guess is the "I'll handle it" meant that mum was going to tell dad to be more careful in the house when the kids might be around. My thoughts too, and it sounds like the parents have their own arrangement that works for them. OP is young and probably doesn't understand that relationships can look a lot of different ways, and couples work out what is okay and not okay for themselves. If mum is okay, no one is being abusive, and the parents seem to get along great, then OP needs to mind her own business. Edited to clarify, the kid is not the asshole. If anything, it's great that she didn't keep this a secret from her mum. I appreciate that honesty. But now that she's been informed that there is not a problem here and everyone is safe, she does need to cool down and wait for the awkward conversation that's coming. And believe me, it's going to be uncomfortable for everyone. You're the asshole. It sounds like you don't actually know anything. You told your mum what you saw, so trust she handled it. There may be an explanation. Seeing a kiss on the cheek is nothing. Your parents could have an open relationship. Maybe your mum cheated first, so your dad gets a hall pass. There could be many explanations, so if your mum doesn't seem mad or bothered by it, then butt out of their marriage. It has nothing to do with you. Everyone sucks here. It sounds like your mum and dad have an understanding that you know nothing about. But I think since you've caught your dad in a situation that you were clearly not meant to see, it is your parents' responsibility to have a conversation with you about it so you're not entirely kept in the dark, especially because this is emotionally affecting you. And now back up to the post. Edit. I asked my dad about it, but he just avoided answering and told me that him and mum would talk to me about it when I cooled down. What do I have to cool down about? I don't know. And edit, going against what my brother said, I talked to my cousin about it since we are pretty close. Basically, she told me two things. 1, stop getting influenced by TikTok and Reddit, and 2, she said that they're in an open relationship. I asked how she knew for sure, and she told me to give my parents time to explain this, and that it took her mum a month before she finally sat her and my brother down after they caught her with a family friend. After asking, she told me this happened about 5 years ago. Never thought my aunt was like that. And edit, after sleeping it off and finally reading everyone's comments, I felt really guilty for yelling at my mum and know that I deserve all of those "you're the assholes." I apologized to my mum once I got home from school and am now going to stay with my friend for a few days. Hopefully my parents will be ready to talk when I return. And now, onto the update. Hello everyone, I just wanted to say thank you for all the responses and for dealing with my brattiness, which were my brother's words. The split judgments were giving me a headache while trying to read everyone's comments, lol. After sleeping off my rage fit and reading some of the comments, I did come to terms that I was in the wrong. Some people had mentioned that my parents could have been trying to come up with the best way to talk to me, which I believe was true because they have never been good at having heart-to-hearts. So doing what I thought would be good for everyone, I made plans to stay with my close friend and let my parents be. I apologized to my mum and left for my friends. There was a little arson situation at our high school like an hour before school ended, so we all got out early and I decided to go home earlier. When my parents got home from work, we had our conversation. First, my mum apologized profusely for having me wait and not saying anything earlier, and my dad apologized for having me see what I saw. I accepted them but apologized to my mum again. Mum said, "We weren't planning on telling you everything until you moved out, but your idiot for a father always messes crap up." She then told me that what they have is like an open relationship, but they never knew what to label it until one of their friends helped. She also told me that since they were being honest, it was her who cheated first, and my dad turned out to be okay. My dad told me that if I wanted, they wouldn't have their friends around anymore. I declined that offer since I was already used to seeing them, and I never minded the extra people in the house. My brother joined the conversation and told me the story of how he found out about my aunt and our parents. Later, my brother came into my room and showed me my Am I the Asshole post on his phone. Yes, he found my post, FML. He pinched me and said he was sorry. To clear up a few things, 1, many of you said that it was obvious it was an open relationship, but it wasn't to me. 2, a lot of you took the sentence, "never thought my aunt was like that," wrong. I wasn't judging or anything, I was honestly just surprised since I didn't expect my aunt of all people to like that sort of thing. She's pretty conservative, lol. 3, I didn't want to believe my parents were in an open relationship since I just couldn't picture it. My mom always tells me a few things, and one of them being, never let a man make a fool of you. Thinking my mom was just letting my dad mess around without any consequences was what made me mad. 5, I never wanted a divorce. 6, I referenced movies once. And 7, my parents didn't gaslight me, and I'm not traumatized. Everyone that shared their experiences, I hope you're at peace now. This was a roller coaster of emotion, and I think it made all of us a bit closer. Again, thank you everyone, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day or night. And now in the comments, quote, "My mum said that we weren't planning on telling you everything until you moved out, but your idiot father always messes crap up." I agree with your mum. You don't bring external lovers into the home when your kids are home and old enough to know that something is up. Dad was the idiot. Yup, you can't not tell your kids you're in an open relationship, yet bring others into the house. Either it's separate or it's not. If they weren't ready to tell their daughter about it, they should have tried harder to hide it. Your idiot father always messes crap up, says the person who cheated first. Says the only person who cheated too, since per the mum she cheated and then they opened up the relationship. Poor kids. Thank you for the update, and for the record, 1, many of you said that it was obvious it was an open relationship, but it wasn't for me. I would not think a 14-year-old would know what an open relationship is. That kind of advanced human sexuality does not come up until college, if at all. If you're under 18 and your parents did not tell you, keep in mind, not every teenager explores the depths of the not safe for work subreddits. I also think that even someone who knows what an open relationship is might have trouble recontextualizing what they've always known as a monogamous relationship, especially their parents' relationship, into that framework without any guidance. Yeah, I'm fully polyamorous, but I would still be incredibly shocked and would need to process it if I suddenly found out that my parents weren't monogamous. Quote, "My rage fit and there was a little arson situation. Boy, never a dull moment with kids these days." Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for telling my stepdad and stepbrother that biological relationships are more important?" So my bio dad was never in my life, and my mum married my stepdad when I was 4. He found out he had a son when I was 8. My brother was 12 years old then, and he lived full-time with us for the next year. He would pay much more attention to him. I don't know if it was because he was his child or because he was a boy. He rarely made time for me, and I just tagged along to do what my brother wanted to do so that I could spend time with them. I always felt like a third wheel, and I was hoping that things would improve after my brother went to college. But yeah, he really didn't spend more time with me, and it actually decreased because we didn't have my brother to do things with. I am the odd one of the family. Everyone else has a strong bond, and I'm just this burden they have to bear for a few more years. My mum talks about how hard raising me alone was, and sometimes she talks about the choices that she was forced to make at the time, and I don't know. I think her life would have been so much easier if she had given me away or something. My brother and dad were having a conversation about adoption because my brother thinks that he wants to adopt in the future. Dad said something like it was love that made family and not biology. I know that that's a lie, he knows it too, and I interjected and told them that biological relationships were more important too, and it was kinda shitty to ignore that. My brother and dad went really quiet, and they changed the topic. I could see that my brother was really upset, and he didn't really interact with me for the rest of the day. My mum is furious with me, and she said that what I said was cruel, and it was very disappointing that I would even think something like that, and that she was really mad. I didn't want to hurt them at all, and I don't even know why I said it. I feel like an absolutely vile human right now. I know I hurt them both. I was just an asshole. And now in the comments, not the asshole, but you should probably have actually explained yourself. Saying something like that without context is going to come across as asshole-ish. It sounds like your brother has taken that to mean that you may not love him as a brother, and that is not what you meant. Explain yourself. Tell them that you feel that your stepdad has given your brother more love and attention, and you've always assumed it's because you are not biologically related to him, and go from there. This, start with your brother, write it to him if he won't talk to you. Normally I'd advocate the person-to-person talk, but it seems like you might be too nervous for that. That will give you the opportunity to edit it, to say what you feel, without accidentally saying something incomplete that doesn't express what you really meant correctly. Make sure you tell him how much you truly do care. It's just been your experience that it can be one-sided. Not the asshole at all. You just said what you have been experiencing regarding the way that they have treated you. They say that you are a part of the family, but in reality, you are not, and they treat you differently. But they don't want to see or own that. I was raised in a similar situation. I was raised by my uncle and aunt, and I grew up with their children, and no matter what they say regarding being a family, I was always treated differently. I was once told that I wasn't a part of the family. Apart from everything, I grew up well-ish, and I left them, moved countries, and I couldn't be happier. Not the asshole. While I think that telling your stepdad that biology is more important than love was kind of a shitty thing to say, I get the feeling that you don't really believe it yourself. You seem to care a lot about him and your stepbrother. You said you always felt like a third wheel, probably because you loved them enough to want to spend time with them and consider them as your family. Now, I don't know all of the dynamics in your family, but it's not that unusual for parents to share more interests with one of their kids. It doesn't mean that your stepdad doesn't love you or love you less. I think you need to have a conversation with him about how you feel. Info. Did you ever mention how you felt about your relationship with your stepdad? And OP replies, I have not. Everything is below the surface right now, and I don't know. I'm scared if I bring it up, they'll stop pretending to care. Which is a stupid thing to think, but that's how I feel. That might be for the best. Then you could maybe develop a real relationship, or just say, later, see you, bye. And now onto the update. People told me I'm not the asshole, but I needed to explain what I meant. I honestly didn't want to, but my brother was not texting me as regularly, and I felt hurt and I wanted to fix things. I took some time to practice out what I wanted to say with my best friend. They wanted to listen, and I told them that I felt left out from stuff. They were defensive and were saying that we always included you, and Mum said she was about to scold me. I started to cry. I was practically bawling, and all of my little speech went out the window, and I cried a lot, and I told them that I knew Dad cared a lot about my brother. I could see that he was just tolerating me though. I could see how disinterested he was. I also told my mum that I felt like a burden that she was forced to deal with, and sometimes I felt like they were all waiting for me to turn 18 to be done with me. It took me a lot of time to get it out in between crying. Mum and Dad were also crying. I have never seen Dad cry before. We didn't really talk much. They just hugged me. My dad apologized and told me that he had messed up and he couldn't do anything about what happened before, but he will try really hard to fix this. Mum also talked to me. She told me that it has been tough, but she never thought of me as a burden. She said she loved me and I was the best thing that had happened to her. I still feel hurt, but I feel so much better now. And now in the comments, I really hope they stick to what they told you and continue to improve themselves and their actions. Hoping the best for you. Thank you for the update. Hoping that it continues down a good path. I really hope things improve for you. Hugs. My mum used to go on about how awful her life is as a single mother. Then she wondered why I have such low self-esteem. Some people just don't hear themselves. Good for you for speaking up. It is always good to get things out. I am very happy for you that they were receptive. I wish you the best. Alright, and that is where we're going to finish today's episode, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, smack that like button as always. Don't forget to drink water. Don't forget to get out and get some sunshine if it's sunny out there today. Hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.